I love doing the show because we have so many segments bringing attention to things that I think most of us don't think about. We just had that with Cornerstone Animal Hospital.
Yeah.
And Dr. Stewart is with us to talk a little bit about medical prep that we need to do during severe weather season. We had quite an event 2 nights ago with 100-mile-per-hour winds in downtown Carthage. Caused some damage there, and you were directly involved in the triage efforts after the Joplin tornado, something I also didn't know until you sent us some of this, some of the information that you sent us.
Yeah, that is
Tell
correct.
us a little bit about that day before we get into how we need to, and I know you've told the story a million times, but I always think I've heard all of the tornado stories, and there's always more.
Sure, sure. I was the medical director of St. John's Hospital at the time. It had been bought out by Mercy, so it was Mercy Hospital at that time. And I was actually supposed to be working in the hospital that day. I was taking a vacation with my family, ended up in Silver Dollar City. When we came back, the hospital was being destroyed by that big F5 tornado.
So you probably got back in town somewhere at 5:36, right?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
Around that area, the tornado warning sirens were still going off in Carthage. So we went down to our basement, which we're going to talk about for this segment. But once the warnings were over, I knew I had to get to the hospital. I made every attempt I could to get to St. John's, and it was destroyed. And I found myself at Wildwood Baptist Church. It was one of the few structures still standing on 20th Street, and we were able to actually provide a lot of medical services. Flew 2 people out by helicopter from that scene.
I'd love to hear more about that, but we definitely want to get to the subject at hand, and that is how to make sure that you are medically prepared for a situation that you might find yourself when severe weather comes.
Exactly, exactly. So we need to know the difference between what is a tornado watch and what is a tornado warning. Tornado watch is basically conditions are ripe for tornadoes. You need to be aware and alert of all of the things that are taking place, because obviously a tornado watch can be turned into a tornado warning. Tornado warning means that they've noticed that a ground activity of a tornado is actually on the ground, or the conditions are perfect for a tornado to appear.
Well said, yes.
So you want to make sure that you have a place to gather. Most of us, if we don't have a basement, you'll have a storm shelter of some sort. In a lot of communities, they'll have places you can go to that have storm shelters where you can congregate and be safe.
Right.
I know that Joplin, the campus on Joplin, is a safe area for
At KCU?
At KCU,
okay.
yeah. For the citizens around the area, they can go there as a storm shelter.
And the screen that we've got up right now, this is stuff that you need to write down. Take a screenshot of this screen and talk a little bit about each of these line items.
Yeah, so you definitely want to make sure you have electricity going to the location you're going to be collecting at. You want to make sure your phones are charged up, because a lot of times you're going to be using those phones for communication. Some people who are diabetics might be using their phones in order to monitor their blood sugars and just be able to keep in contact with the outside world. You also might need to have power going to your area, where you're going to return to, so you can have refrigeration. If you need to refrigerate insulin or things like that, you want to make sure that you've got supplies there. You want to have fresh water, enough for 3 days. You want to make sure you've got some supplies down there for 3 days, so dry goods, things that don't require refrigeration, canned goods. And make sure you have a can opener down there, because you don't want to have canned goods without a can opener. And then have fresh water available. It should be at least 1 gallon per person per day.
Okay.
And you want to plan on at least 3 days.
And let's talk about the medicine aspect of this, because I think people, sometimes the sirens go off or the warnings come out, they want to go straight to which they should.
Yeah.
Is it a good idea to have a go bag ahead of time with all of your pertinent medications?
Absolutely. You should have a go bag that's ready to grab and go. If you get a watch, that's a good time to prepare your storm shelter for the supplies you're going to need. Make sure everything's in there. If you don't need them, no problem. If you end up having to rush down there, you don't have to think about the last minute things that you need to grab before you go down there. So think ahead, be prepared.
That is so true in all parts of preparation for severe weather.
The last thing I want to say is, get to know first aid, be able to perform CPR. If you don't know those skills, take a first aid course or take a CPR course. You want to be prepared to help control bleeding or do splinting. Those kinds of emergencies will take place if you have a storm like a tornado.
And some of those basic skills can literally be lifesavers.
Life-saving, absolutely.
Yeah. Doctor, thank you so much for being on. These
My pleasure.
are great points.
Thank you, Gary.
And here's a look at what's coming up on Thursday.